almost a red herring, I mean, the Russian stuff is almost a red herring, but it revealed what the processes are, which are used to
How's it almost a
program.
red herring?
Oh, because I think the whatever programming of Americans' minds is done by the Russians is minuscule compared to the programming of Americans' minds by the American
Sure.
corporate and government elite, right? So,
But it's fascinating that anybody's even jumping in as well as the
Yeah.
American elite.
sure,
It all is weird.
it's interesting, and if you look at what's happening in China, that's like
Yeah.
they're way better at it than we are.
Well, it's
right?
much more horrific, right? And that's one of the
Well,
reasons.
it's more professional, it's more polished, it's more centralized.
Yeah.
On the other hand, for almost everyone in China, China's a very good place to live, and the level of improvement in that country in the last 30 years has just been astounding, right? Like
Right.
you can't argue with how much better it's gotten there since
is that
Deng
because
Xiaoping
of-
took over. It's tremendous.
Because they embraced capitalism to a certain extent.
They've created their own unique system.
Right.
What labels you give it is
Yes.
almost arbitrary. They've created their own unique system as a crazy hippie libertarian anarcho-socialist freedom-loving maniac. That system rubs against migraine in many ways. On the other hand, empirically, if you look at it, it's improved the well-being of a tremendous number of people.
So hopefully it evolves and it's one step
Well,
better than
but
it used
the
to
way
be.
it's evolving now is not in a more
Positive way.
freedom-loving. Well, it's not in a more freedom-loving and anarchic direction. One would say it's positive in some ways and negative in others, like
why,
most
why
complex
are you,
things.
in Hong
right?
Kong? Why do you live there?
I fell in love with a Chinese woman. And,
There you go. Good enough reason.
Yeah, it was a great reason. We had a baby recently. She's not from Hong Kong. She's from mainland China. I met her when she was doing her PhD in computational linguistics in Xiamen. But that was what sort of first got me to spend a lot of time in China. But then I was doing some research at Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and then my good friend David Hansen was visiting me in Hong Kong. I introduced him to some investors there, which ended up with him bringing his company Hansen Robotics to Hong Kong. So now, after I moved there because of falling in love with Ray Ting, then I brought my friend David there. Then Hansen Robotics grew up there, and there's actually a good reason for Hansen Robotics to be there, because the best place in the world to manufacture complex electronics is in Shenzhen, right across the border from Hong Kong. So now I've been working there with Hansen Robotics on the Sophia robots and other robots for a while, and I've accumulated a whole AI team there around Hansen Robotics and SingularityNet. So by now I'm there because my whole AI and robotics teams are there.
Right, makes sense. Do you follow the State Department's recommendations to not use Huawei devices, and they believe that they're...
Well, no.
You've heard that?
Yeah.
Pay attention to that?
I
They think
mean,
that the Chinese are spying on us too.
I'm sure. When I lived in Washington D.C. for 9 years. I did a bunch of consulting for various government agencies there, and my wife is a Communist Party member, actually. Just because she joined in high school when it was sort of suggested for her to join. So I'm sure I'm being watched by multiple governments. It doesn't.
Right.
I don't have any secrets. It doesn't really matter. I'm not in the business of trying to overthrow any government. I'm in the business of trying to bypass traditional governments and traditional monetary systems and all the rest by creating new methods of organization of people and information.
I understand that with you personally, but it is unusual if the government is actually spying on people through these devices.
I doubt it's unusual. I doubt it's unusual at all. I mean, without going into too much detail, like when I was in D.C. working with various government agencies, it became clear there is tremendously more information obtained by government agencies than most people realize.
Yeah,
And
well, we found out.
this was true way before Snowden and WikiLeaks
Yeah.
and all these revelations. And what is publicly understood now is probably not the full scope of the information that governments have either. So privacy is pretty much dead. And David Brin Do you know David Brin?
No.
You should definitely interview David Brin. He's an amazing guy, but he's a well-known science fiction writer. He's based in Southern California, actually San Diego.
Okay,
But
cool.
he wrote a book years ago called The Transparent Society, where he said there's two possibilities: surveillance and surveillance. It's like the power elite watching everyone, or everyone watching everyone.
I think everyone watching everyone.
Well,
is
yeah, but
inevitable.
he articulated this as essentially the only two viable possibilities, and he's like, we should be choosing and then creating which of these alternatives we want. So now the world is starting to understand what he was talking about back when he wrote that book.
What year
right?
did you write the book?
Oh, I can't remember. I mean, it was well more than a decade ago.
It's weird when
Yeah.
some people just nail it on the head decades in advance.
I mean, most of the things that are
What's going on here, big boy?
Who's you? Do I know you?
I don't know you.
Oh, wait.
What? God, dude. Yo, you didn't.
I mean, we're just going to go out and take the guys that
That's
initially
not
killed
valid
us.
initiation because
we didn't tell them to get out the car.
no. The rules state that
we wouldn't
in
rob
order
that,
for
by
it
the
to
way.
be
We robbed the guy robbing that.
in order for it to be a valid initiation, a firearm must be present, a threat to life must be present, and we were in a vehicle, so that's not a valid initiation. So that was just word of
because
mouth.
cops always have guns. Like, I don't understand.
Fucking
Sis
roasted.
has to have weapons
Dude,
in order
just
to
get
rob gas
demolished.
stations.
Always have a weapon, so they're always like, if you say get out the car.
Yo, dude, with the ace of spades.
What's up, bro?
You didn't initiate on me, bro.
I did.
No, you didn't. Fine. Dude, you didn't initiate, bro. I was stuck on the fucking side of the wall.
He's like my guy on the radio. He's like, yeah, it's a class 3, it's a class 3. I'm like, oh shit. Turned around that corner and I saw you and I was like, oh shit.